Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'll talk about the Gates of Whimsy. Now that I think about it, it's kind of a series at this point, just talking about random game mechanics or events or just random stuff in general in these games. These are by far my most popular videos and one I do quite enjoy doing, as I learn a lot of stuff I already didn't know and I get to share it with all of you. I will cover what they are, how they spawn, the different types of rooms, the big gates and the pearly chamber, and the boss fights, as well as maybe a bit of lore. Nothing else to say, so let's just get into the video. First off, what are Gates of Whimsy? Well, they are doors that can spawn randomly on walls and can be detected with the question mark on the yokai radar. Going inside one will bring you to a room, which will give you gate globes when cleared. They are in both Yokai Watch 2 and Yokai Watch 3 and are introduced in the story by an NPC called Diana Gately, who does research on Gates of Whimsy and tasks the player with finding gate globes. Well, that was probably the most basic explanation of Gates of Whimsy, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here in case people forgot or don't know. Gates of Whimsy can spawn in every area of Springdale except Mount Wildwood, Excellent Tower, Harrisville and San Fantastico, and the three main BBQ areas in Yokai Watch 3. As for specific locations, I won't list them all here as there are way too many. You might not believe this, but the wiki actually has a list of nearly every Gate of Whimsy location. Just don't scroll down any farther because that's not really correct. The spawning location does not determine what room you'll get, as it is completely random. In fact, most of, if not all of the rooms I showcase here, were found from the same location. If you get the same room twice from the same location, it's just a coincidence. Remember, there's only so many Gates of Whimsy, so you're bound to come across duplicates. There will always be one Gate of Whimsy in every possible area, so check all the spawning locations and you should find one. Reloading the area will change the Gate of Whimsy location, and saving before entering and reloading can change what room you get. After exiting a Gate of Whimsy, the player ends up in a random location, in the same area as the Gate of Whimsy. From my testing, directly after exiting a Gate of Whimsy there won't be another one in the area, but just reloading the area spawns a new one. Thankfully, this works exactly the same in both games. Because I know there's a common misconception that I also believed, that the only way to respawn Gates of Whimsy was to sleep a day and that only one gate spawned per day. As for farming gate globes by repeatedly completing Gates of Whimsy, I just recommend reloading an area close to where a gate location is, and by the way, going in and out of buildings and warping with mirror poles somewhere in the same area does not reload the area, so you need to go into a different area in order to do that. I haven't found a specific location that's best for this, but there are plenty of gate locations near reloading areas. Or you could just warp between two mirror poles near gate locations in different areas. Another way you could do this is just go on a loop around all the areas and check every gate location. When you enter a Gate of Whimsy, you'll be brought to one of four room types. Battle rooms are by far the most common. They take place in an indoor area and you have to defeat yokai that replace the NPCs that would normally be there, wandering about that you have to defeat. This applies to all room types, but after clearing the room, gate globes will appear in the room, usually near the exit. And for battle rooms, the number of yokai you have to defeat is the amount of gate globes you get for clearing it. The yokai that spawn are just regular yokai you can find really anywhere else, and they depend on the player's current watch rank. Though in Yokai Watch 3 I have occasionally found rare yokai like Scalabella, Quit and All Me in these regular battle rooms. The second type is speed rooms, which require the player to get to the exit before the time runs out. There will usually be yokai that can battle you, and the timer still goes well in battle, so you need to be quick. The timer does not run whilst you're in the menu, so you can just use a stamina to make things easier. After hours of testing, I've only ever found 3. A speedroom that I've come across takes place in the school, with a set path you have to follow. There will be machismos blocking what would otherwise be a faster way out, which you can risk and choose to battle instead. Another takes place in the hot springs, and is incredibly short even for the 1.5 minute time limit. If you try to enter the girls one, then Whisper says this, which I found funny. Jesus, the wind is loud. The final one I found is in the yokai world, and you have to get from the end, where you fight McCracken, all the way to the beginning. The school and the hot springs one I found in both games, but the yokai world one I've only seen in Yokai Watch 2. The yokai world one gives 4 gate globes, the school one gives 3, and the hot springs one gives 2. The third type of room, and one the 2 types people actually care about, are expert rooms. These work the same as battle rooms, except it's only one yokai, which will be a strong rare yokai. The ones I found are Slackaslash, Skelabella, Tanbo, and Zero in Yokai Watch 2, which can all be found normally as well. And in Yokai Watch 3, expert rooms give you the Wicked Executives, which is an alternate way of befriending them if you don't want to do their quest. I know you can get them from the Kind Blasters Tea, don't comment about it. I recently befriended Zero from this, and he turned out to be level 74, so you better be prepared. These always give 4 gate globes. These are the only yokai I've found from these rooms from hours of testing, so this is probably all of them, but let me know in the comments if there are any more. Same goes for speed rooms. The fourth and final type of room, bizarre rooms. These are the ones people care the most about, because there are so many different ones, which are also weird. They have their own segment in the video because I want to include as many as possible that I've found. First off, quite a few bizarre rooms in Yokai Watch 3 are about talking to NPCs around the place to figure out which character you are. Kinda like Guess Who, except you don't get to ask questions. After a certain amount of time has passed, you're taken to a room in front of a mirror in first person. The bottom screen presents you with 4 options on who you could be. Once you've selected, the camera zooms out and reveals whether you're correct or not. These will usually only give 2 gate globes, unfortunately. One of these takes place in the Infinite Tunnel, which is otherwise never seen in that game. It's in first person and the mirror's at the end. I found 2 versions of this one where you're Dr. Madaman, and another where you're a member of Next Harmiauni. Which I actually guessed wrong on that one, and here's what happened for those wondering. It's definitely my favourite bizarre room. Another takes place in the school, where the answer is Isabel, and another one I came across takes place in the Wobble store, and the answer is Professor. There's also one which takes place in Katie's room, in first person, which I thought was cool, and the answer is Nate. In Yokai Watch 2, there are a couple where you're at someone's house and you have to do something. There's one in Eddie's house where his mum asks you to talk to him, and then you have to defeat his new friend, which are actually just bad yokai. I found one that's in an empty grandma's house. You have to go to different places in the house until grandma arrives at the front door with Nathaniel, which I thought was cool. Finally, there's one in Katie's house where she asks you to wash your hands, go to the toilet, and wash your hands again, and that's it. I've heard that if you play as Katie, you instead get one where you have to get people to leave Nate's house by convincing them he's average. I spent way too long, probably most of the time I spent testing, trying to find the version of this one when playing as Nate. Turns out, I was searching for a bizarre room that never existed, as the Nate version is the one I literally just mentioned. I feel really stupid after that. There's one in Yokai Watch 2 with Mr. Goodsight in Timers and More, where he gives you a 3-question, pretty easy yokai quiz. The questions are random, but for my testing, the sets of questions are randomized rather than the individual questions themselves. The last one I found in Yokai Watch 2 takes place in Frostia's place, where you have to buy the gate globe, and there are several other things you can buy that aren't really worth it though, as it's just simple things like stamina and plum rice balls. Similarly, in Yokai Watch 3 I've seen one that takes place in the Phantom Art, where you have to buy gate globes. Interestingly, it uses the layout from the story when you have to hide from Super Manager. Another one in Yokai Watch 3 takes place in the church with Thomas. You'll probably recognise this one if you've ever watched Abdallah Smash. I'll just let this one play out. This is by far the weirdest one. I mean, he also says there's a demon in your heart by not accepting his very not suspicious medicine and his tasty pasta. What kind of backward logic is that? Yokai Watch teaches kids a lot of things about real life, like crossing the road correctly, not trusting strangers, or that it's not weird for old men to be asking children to receive their underwear from a giant pig in the hot springs at night time. Remember kids, if a random person in a church comes up to you and offers you medicine, say yes because Yokai Watch told you to. Please don't actually do that. I also find it really funny that he doesn't offer you pasta, but he just says tasty pasta. There's also one in Jungle Hunter where it's run by animals who have humans as pets. It's really weird. If you talk to some of them who have people next to them, they'll say how much they love humans. If you try to buy anything, the animals will turn you down because you're a human. Weirdly enough, the way to win here is to try and exit, which results in a battle with Beetler and Rhinogon. And that's every single Bazaar room. There might be more, but I'm pretty confident I have them all from, I'm not joking, 10 hours of testing. And most of that was trying to search for the one that doesn't exist, but still. I'll upload a video which has every Bazaar room in its entirety for those who want to see it. You might be thinking, why does Diana Gately want us to collect gate globes in the first place? Well, that is to unlock the big gates in Yokai Watch 2 and the Pearly Chamber in Yokai Watch 3. I'll start with the big gates. The big gates are located in Gourd Pond Museum Vault, which is the same place you fight Phantasmara in Yokai Watch 1. I unfortunately won't be able to show footage of these when doing them for the first time because, well, I already beat them. I would do them on my second save files, but they barely have any gate globes, and I don't want to spend any more time doing gates of whimsy than I already have. In total, you need a whopping 105 gate globes for all the big gates. 5 to access them, and from left to right they cost 10, 20, 30 and 40. The one in the middle starts at 4 and counts down every time you complete a big gate. One thing to note is that you don't have to spend all the required gate globes at once. For example, for the door that only costs 10, if you only have 5 gate globes, then you can put them in and put the remaining 5 in later. Not sure... Jesus, that wind is just... Maybe iPhone's coming for me. Maybe he's heard the things I've said about him. Anyway, hopefully you can hear that, otherwise that wouldn't make any sense, but there's very loud wind. Anyway, where was I? Not sure why anyone wouldn't just wait till they have them all in, but it is an option. I'm going to cover these from left to right. The first one utilises the can kicking minigame. If you didn't know, sometimes in the overworld you might come across a can that can be kicked, and you get a reward if you manage to kick them into a bin. It functions the same here, except instead of a bin, you have to kick it into this rainbow football goal type thing. The first room is very straightforward, probably to introduce you in case you haven't come across it. The second room has yokai you have to avoid, as well as holes you have to avoid kicking the can into, or else you restart the room. In the third one, you have to kick it along a path with plenty of edges to kick the can off of, and walls to help you a bit. It ends with the can being kicked down a slope into the goal. The last room is just you fighting superhero. There's also this rainbow thing at the start of each room that, in case you need to reset. I do quite like this one, though unfortunately I really suck at the can kicking minigame. The second room is like a puzzle room. You have several of these crossings, and you can cross when the light's green, but you can't when the light's red. The first room introduces you to the mechanic with Gargrosses being at the red light and a lady being at the green light, and being able to switch between them. The second room is also fairly simple, introducing the idea of some crossings not having switches. The third room can be quite difficult however, but it still isn't too bad and ends with Ogrelus at the last crossing. If you really wanted to, you can cross on a red light, but then you have to fight Gargos. Twice. Per crossing. Even with level 99s, you'll still take a while, so at that point just do the puzzle normally. In the final room, you just have to fight Suspicione. I actually really like this room. I quite like puzzle games, and too bad there aren't more of these. The next one's a fun one that unfortunately only lasts 2 rooms. Well, I guess technically 3 if you include the start one, but whatever. It's a really long and wide slide that you have to get to the bottom of. You have to move horizontally to avoid yokai, and there's sometimes platforms in the middle with chests you can get. The end room has you fight Compunzer. The final room revolves around baffle boards. Baffle boards are a sign type thing where they give you 3 clues for a yokai, and if you guess correctly, you're able to summon that yokai if you have it, and it'll do something. In this case, baffle boards are used to advance to the next room. The first room is very simple, with an easy to answer question and only 2 yokai to choose from. There will be yokai in each room that spawn infinitely, one of which will be the answer, so you can befriend the right yokai if you don't already have it. The baffle board answer will be one of the yokai that spawn, so if you're stuck, just try every yokai in the room and you should eventually get it. The second room is a bit harder and can be quite confusing with all the yokai being in trees, and the baffle board describing which tree the yokai is in rather than the yokai itself. Miracle is one yokai that spawns here, and it's a very easy way to get him for the Merkraken baffle board, as he obviously spawns infinitely and there will be 3 of them in battle, making it even easier. And the answer is Caden, by the way. The third room's even more confusing. On the right, no, left, wait, right? The answer is Peckpocket, which I can only guess is because of his positioning on the 3 battles. After this, you fight Old Saint Trick. After clearing all 4 big gates, the big door opens up, and when you go inside, you meet the creator of the Gates of Whimsy, Ifun, who reveals that they're all illusions. Wow, who could have guessed? Then he wants to test your strength, which then starts the fight. I've already talked about these natural disaster bosses before, and why I dislike them, though Ifun is the best out of them. I'll do a quick rundown of his gimmick in case anyone doesn't know. You attack his 2 hand eyes until they close, and when his main eye opens up, he does a Soultimate. The hand eyes never reopen once closed, which I don't like, and all 3 targets deal damage to him. The attacks I actually think are fine. In my opinion, he's the best of the 3, as obviously he has the whole thing with the Gates of Whimsy, and I like his colours, especially that instead of a normal cloud, it's like a rainbow thing, like the entrances to the Gates of Whimsy, gate globes, the backgrounds of the big gates, and I guess this is just kind of the Gate of Whimsy aesthetic in general. Maybe Ifun had too many oddball toadstools when making these gates. After beating him, he says that he made the Gates of Whimsy in order to meet someone strong like the player. Ifun leaves, and Diana Gately says the reason she's doing this research is to solve housing problems, and asks the player to keep collecting gate globes. If you talk to Gately, she'll now offer you a large EXP orb for 5 gate globes, which I guess is cool, but I was very disappointed that that's all that she'll trade. She also has another quest after this, where you fight Phantasmari, which makes sense, as Phantasmari is fought in Gourd Pond Museum Vault, which is where the big gates are located. That's all for the big gates, and now let's move on. In Yokai Watch 3, Diana Gately has moved her research over to BBQ, and Ifun has created something called the Pearly Chamber of Whimsy in this random garage in the corner of North Beach. Inside the Pearly Chamber, there are 4 rooms called Buoyant Booths, with a big room at the end, all locked behind doors that require gate globes. Basically, exactly the same as big gates, except you have to do them in order. There are also optional doors which require gate globes, but they're not really worth it as they're just chests. In total you need 63 gate globes to get to the end. 3 to enter, 10, 15 and 15 for the Buoyant Booths, the first one's free, and 20 for the final room. Including the optional ones brings it up to 92, as all 3 of them cost 10. That's still less than Yokai Watch 2, which I'm glad, because as interesting as Gates of Whimsy are, grinding for gate globes is very annoying. Interestingly, the Pearly Chamber uses the Yokai World theme from Wibble Wobble / Puni Puni. The first Buoyant Booth uses the shopping trolley from the Phantom Art, or should I say shopping cart because we're in BBQ now. It's kind of the same thing as when you use it in the story with Super Manager, or on that one dream floor in Bada Bing Tower. The first room is very simple, just showing you what you have to do. The second room is much longer, having you avoid going off the edges or you'll restart, and also going around turns and going off ramps. There are even a couple bits at the side where you can fall and get a chest, but you have to restart, so it's not really worth it. And that's the last room before you fight Mama Aura of all yokai. The second buoyant booth starts off with Badude taking all your money, and the goal is to battle yokai that infinitely respawn, and make enough money to buy the key to the next room. The first room, the key is only $3, so you only need to beat a couple yokai. The second room, however, the key is $20, meaning you have to do a lot more battling. Although there's a yokai called, I kid you not, Ballin, who gives out more money. But he works like Noko, where he'll run away. He won't spawn after you've bought the key, so I can't really show that. I would recommend befriending him here, as the only other way to get him, other than Blaster's Tea, is in the scrapyard, where I believe he's a rare spawn, but I could be wrong. After this, we once again fight Superhero. I wish there was more of this, because I do like the concept, though, to be fair, there's not really much else they could have done. This one also used another Wibble Wobble theme, this time being the sewer theme. Before we move on, something else to note is that each time you complete a buoyant booth, a shortcut opens up so you don't have to go through all of them again. The third buoyant booth is where you take a quiz before crossing the road. The first room is with Run Sure, and the question's always the same from my testing. The second room has Professor Plumage ask you randomized questions, similar to the Mr. Goodsight Bazaar room. I know they're random because when we playing it for writing the script, I got the same question twice. Anyway, he'll ask you 2 questions, before a true or false question, and then you fight him. Once again, I feel 2 rooms is too short, especially for this one. The previous 2 I understand a bit more, like the shopping cart one has been done before and there isn't much else to do with the money one. If they thought it would be too boring, then they could make you, like, I don't know, type out the answers or ask you about... Jesus. That... Yeah, maybe iPhone and Tornado are out to get me after what I've said and what I'm about to say. I don't know why the wind's so loud. Anyway, where was I? If they thought it would be too boring, then they could just make you type out the answers or something, or maybe ask you about previous buoyant booths, or... Anyway, the fourth and final buoyant booth involves using the yokai drill, and actually has 3 rooms this time. You have to drill to the end without drilling any blocks surrounding a yokai, or they'll attack you. It doesn't sound too bad until you realise the yokai are level 90. Even with level 99s, it's not worth it because it just takes ages. There's only 1 yokai in the first room, and the other 2 have quite a few, as well as some chests. Afterward, you have to beat Rhinormus, who's very weak and underwhelming compared to the level 90 yokai you might have just fought. This room also uses the Wibble Wobble theme, being the Infinite Inferno theme. After opening the final room, we encounter iPhone, and he now says yo and stuff because he was apparently reborn in BBQ. After talking to him for a bit, he's interrupted by his dad, Tornado, not another one, telling him off and calling him dum-dums. iPhone then leaves us and we fight Tornado. He works nearly exactly the same, except he has like 1 new attack, and obviously we're in Yokai Watch 3 now. One thing I do like is that his hand eyes are at the front of the grid as the main eye is in the middle, which means not every ultimate can hit all 3 targets, which I guess is cool. The hand eyes still never reopen though. His ultimate hits every square on the grid, which I don't like. I know other boss ultimates do that as well, but those are much more avoidable. I mean, they could have done what Zen Lightner does with the grid hazards, or what Arcanos does, where he makes some of the ones invisible, or well, you can't see some of them. Or they could have just not made it hit every square. If they wanted an eye natural disaster boss, then they should have just used iPhone, or made a completely new boss. I do like his colours, but I don't like how he sounds. He's supposed to be iPhone's dad, and he sounds like a child. The fact that he also says dum-dums, which I feel is something only 5-year-olds say, though to be fair, my dad also says that. Anyway, after you beat him, he apologises for being wrong and goes off to scold Ifun. After that, Gately says the exact same thing she says in 2. Similarly, exactly like in 2, you can trade her 5 gate globes for a large EXP orb. She also helps out in the Zomboy quest, where she reveals that she's friends with Francesca Stein, the one who researches zombies in Zombie Night, which I've always found to be cool. One more thing I want to mention is even if you don't ever intend on doing big gates or the pearly chambers, you never know, you might. So if you ever see a gate of whimsy or you ever see the question mark on your yokai radar, make sure to check it out, because you never know, that could save you some grinding later down the road. As a wise man once said, one does not simply walk past a gate of whimsy. Well, that was the Gates of Whimsy. I was surprised that there was even less stuff about Bizarre Rooms than the red box. I find Gates of Whimsy very interesting, and I quite enjoyed making this one. Well, except when I spent hours trying to find a Bizarre Room that doesn't even exist. Anyway, like and sub if you like this and want to see more. And comment your favourite Bizarre Room or just Gate of Whimsy. Eat your tasty pasta, and I'll see you in the next one. Yeah, that outro was rushed, you can tell, because I've just finished writing the script and I realised this is a great opportunity to record, and I might not get another one for a while, so here we are. I might add a bit more to the outro after I've recorded this, but that's why the outro's a bit short. Anyway, yeah, maybe I should stop before Ifun tries to destroy my house or something.